So not the coach, but the king was the one to inform Kevin Love that he's moving to center. Stephen A., what does this tell you about the Cavs?
Well, it tells you that LeBron James is the best player in the world. He's a superstar, and superstars have cachet. I think that people lost their way in terms of thinking that this is not supposed to be the case. I mean, LeBron doesn't help matters because he denies it religiously that he has anything to do with front office decisions or coaches' decisions. And we all know he's lying because he doesn't have. It's not like you have to go up to them and demand anything. You're LeBron James. You're the best player in the world who's approaching free agency at the end of this season. And all anybody can do is talk about where you're going or whether or not you're going to stay. That in itself tacitly reveals a tremendous level of power and influence when it comes to the Cleveland Cavaliers organization that everybody has to pay attention to. We're not lost here in the sauce. So let's just be clear about that. But I think people have lost their way because they think back to the days of Michael Jordan when Jerry Reinsdorf, he's the owner now, he was the owner then. But Jerry Krause, the late Jerry Krause, God rest his soul, he was a guy that was the general manager, and he wasn't interested in doing what Michael wanted him to do and what have you. And people sort of think, well, you know what, that's the way it always works. Well, guess what? It's the opposite way. When you are a mega star, you have the basketball IQ of a LeBron James. No, you don't officially make these decisions. You don't officially harbor responsibility. But it's understood that when we make a decision, it had better be something he's pleased with, because if he's not, that doesn't put us in a good place with him. And we don't need to be in a bad place with LeBron James. It's really, really that simple. So it's not a big deal because it's not like LeBron James hasn't forgotten more basketball than most of us know. He's a brilliant basketball player with a brilliant basketball mind, and he's probably one of the people that approached Tyronn Lue about it. And there's no disrespect to Tyronn Lue. And listen, most guys, unless you're Pat Riley or the Phil Jackson, the coach, not the executive, but Phil Jackson, the coach, or somebody like that, you're not going to have more cachet than a superstar of the magnitude of a LeBron James. These kind of things happen, and if you're going to defer to a player, he would be qualified to be one of those people you're deferring to because his brilliance is undeniable.
Stephen A., I see how often you are texted from people throughout the league, which is for people who are interested, on the hour, several times, all day and night, every day. And in this case, you know how you tell people, stay off the weed? I think you are too far in the weeds to see it. You can't see the forest for the trees here because you're all in the mix of it. You're all in the thick of it. Here's what it is to me. I think it's bigger than just Jordan or another superstar calling shots. The Cleveland Cavaliers have no organization. LeBron James is it. Like, what does it say about the organization? That they don't have one. They never did. Dan Gilbert is a mess. Every 2 or 3 years, he gets a new GM. When the only time they've ever been relevant is the moment they drafted LeBron James. They didn't do a good enough job surrounding LeBron with talent, so he took off the moment. Remember, they went from the finals. They made it to the finals with maybe one of the 2 or 3 worst teams ever to make it to the finals. LeBron dragged them there, kicking and screaming. The moment LeBron leaves, not only are they bad and irrelevant, they basically draft #1 overall every year until he comes back. Like, they were basically, every year, the worst team in the NBA, certainly one of them. And that's not basically. Every year, the moment he left, they were one of the worst teams in the NBA. The moment he came back, they got back to the finals. This is not about an organization. The Cavs don't really have one to speak of. Nothing you want to trumpet, nothing they want to blow their horn about. They're a terrible, dysfunctional organization without LeBron. LeBron comes back, he's running the show. And the more he runs the show, the better it is for the Cavs. Of course, he tells Kevin Love what's going to happen. And by the way, if I'm Kevin Love, I'm thinking, thank God someone who knows what he's doing is calling shots here. Because who knows more basketball than LeBron James? He seems to know, at least in the Eastern Conference, how to get to the finals every single year. So I think it's more than just a superstar calling his shots.
Yeah, by staying in the Eastern Conference. That's how you get to the finals all of those 7 years, because you're staying in the weaker conference. Let's just call it what it is. But I would say to you that nice try, good synopsis. I get where you're coming from. But Kobe Altman is the one that pulled off this trade in regards to Isaiah Thomas and Crowder. You got to take into consideration that Derrick Rose and Jeff Green were acquired in the offseason as well. It's not like these guys don't know anything about basketball. When you talk about the dysfunctionality of the Cleveland Cavaliers, let's understand what that is. This is not James Dolan. This is a situation where a guy like Dan Gilbert doesn't know how to just cut the check and move out the way. He actually think he knows a lot about basketball,
right.
So he ingratiates himself. But that doesn't mean the people around him don't know. It just means that they have to work diligently to convince him to let them do the job he hired them to do.
I'm not. Okay, let me clean that up. I did not mean to say Altman or Griffin or who was before Griffin. But the point is, I don't mean to say any of the last three GMs don't know basketball. When I say there is no organization, I'm saying the fish rots from the head down. And I understand what you mean. Dolan's a lot worse than Gilbert, right? But Gilbert still meddles. He meddles, and when he does, nothing good happens.
He meddles. Well, you can't say that. The reason why you can't say that, Max, is because he actually said he had to sit up there, eat a lot of crow, and suck it up to get LeBron James back. We're still waiting. We're still waiting for Dolan to get us a player. So you got to understand something here. The point that I'm trying to make to you is that it's not like all things.
You ain't lying about that.
Listen, Gilbert has. I think that you're entirely too hard on Gilbert. I've never liked him from that letter in 2010. It was belligerent. It was childish. It was beyond the pale. They will never forgive him for it. But he's still smart enough to do business with the best player in the world, who happens to be probably the second biggest sports global icon in the world. So in LeBron James. And so what I'm saying to you is this. You got LeBron. You had Kyrie. You got Kevin Love. You got all of these parts. You ended up going to the finals 3 consecutive years. All I'm saying to you is that even though the man gets in the way, the bottom line is he evidently doesn't get in his way to the point where it compromises them to that degree.